Welcome back. This is Talk Time. Nigeria's power sector has been a cause of concern for citizens and governments. Nigeria produced just 4,000 megawatts for a population of 170 million people. Not until recently that an official of the power sectors announced that it has increased to 5,000 megawatts. But Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, recently told senators that generation will increase by 2,000 megawatts this year. But how much of the power we generate can Nigeria distribute with disruptions to pipelines once in a while? We're looking at the whole chain this morning: generation, transmission and distribution. Joining me from Abuja is an energy consultant, Odion Omofoman. Thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast. Now, for so many years, almost every time, is the problem Nigeria faces is the problem of power generation, power distribution. Even privatization has not helped. Why?
Thank you for having me. Privatization, we've always had this problem in terms of having enough generation to power our people. Now that's the reason why we've put up privatization done. Privatization was done to ensure that the private sector take charge of the sector. And at the same time, too, it was also to ensure that the private sector brought in the right investments to make this improvements in the sector. But however, what privatization also assured the investors was that there will be a right economic model for them to make the investments. And that economic model is hinged on a tariff that will make sure that the investor recovers whatever investment that they make.
Now,
so two years after privatization,
go ahead.
We're seeing a lot of improvement so far. 2 years after privatization, we're seeing a lot of improvement so far. When the power sector reform started, generation capacity was about 1,500 megawatts. Today it's about 5,000 megawatts. So there's been improvement in the sector since privatization started.
Okay, the federal government injected billions of naira into the power sector even after privatization, just to help the 5 companies really to start up. The loans were huge, and then no effect was seen really in that sector. Of course, Nigerians are the ones suffering for it. Now, is it about money expended, injected into this sector that will make it work, or is it something else that needs to be done?
Well, let me first of all correct the impression that the federal government injected billions into the power sector after privatization. The only sector still in control of the government is the transmission aspect of it. And that sector is seriously underfunded. That sector requires about $1 billion every year to make sure it gets to an efficient level. I guess what you're referring to is the CBN bailout fund for the power sector, which was to pay outstanding debts in the market. To your question, what needs to be done to make it better? It's simply about making the right investments. We have a power sector that has been completely underfunded for years. Very low investments have been made. Let me give you an instance. The meter in my father's house in Benin, I'm 3 years older than that meter, and I'm in my 40s. Those meters have to be changed. You have transformers that have served they've gone way past their useful lives that are still in service, and those transformers need to be changed. And it takes investments to make those huge changes that have not been done in a while. So I think the general challenge is investments, making the right investments by the operators to improve their services, both from the generation side, the transmission side, and also the distribution side.
All right, well, for clarification, the federal government approved 18.26 billion naira loans for the the 5 power companies to boost electricity supply, and then 3.9 billion naira for power transmission. That was why I asked that question. It wasn't just for the other thing. And of course, 5.2 billion naira again was another amount approved for these companies. Anyway, looking ahead now, many Nigerians do not have prepaid meters, and yet the power ministry is saying that it has increased it anyway for the tariff increase of electricity supply by 45%. Does that add up?
We're in between it's a chicken and egg situation. Right now, you have investors that are saying we need an economic model for us to make our investments. And on the other hand, you have customers who have been long suffering and have not had the benefits of improved power services, and in some instances are not metered at all. So which comes first? Do you meter all customers before you increase tariffs? Or you increase tariffs and then you start metering customers as well? It's a tough one, but here's my view of it. Let's keep in mind that the tariffs we pay at the distribution level pays for the entire value chain. So it pays the gas supplier who produces gas and charges in dollars. It pays the generation company who takes that gas, turns their turbines and generates megawatts. It pays the transmission company who takes that electricity and sends kilometers, thousands of kilometers all around Nigeria. And finally, it pays the discos who take that power, step it down, and then radiate it around kilometers of areas for you and I to have power. In all the value chain, the cash is generated when you and I pay our bills. And keep in mind that 45% of power that we generate is lost, either through technical losses, commercial losses, people are stealing power, or people are not just paying at all when they give them bills. So it's a case of tariff, unfortunately, may have to go up because, first of all, gas prices, you have to pay for the generators who generate the megawatts. And at the moment, they're generating at a loss. So you must set tariffs at a position where investments can come into the sector and then make it better. So I think it's a tough pill to swallow, but the government is in the right direction. Tariffs, unfortunately, would have to go up.
But people's income basically are still constant, and of course, knowing that Nigeria's naira is devaluing almost every day now, so the exchange rate of the naira is very poor. Nigerians get to pay more for almost every product they pay, and they are saying this is going to be another tough pill to swallow for them. But looking at this, the prospects of this, the minister says that, like you said earlier, is to make the sector viable for investment. But should it be at the detriment of the people?
That's the thing. It's actually for the betterment of the people, because you have a scenario whereby you just said something, exchange rate has gone up. Now, if exchange rate has gone up, keep in mind that 85% of your power is generated from natural gas, with natural gas. And natural gas is charging dollars. So in the first instance, if dollar has gone up or the exchange rate has gone up, it means that the price at which the generators buy gas will also go up as well, and the price of generation will go up. But the question we should be asking is, having increased tariff, what will the people get out of this increase? That is really what we need to focus on. Having increased the tariff, am I going to get prepaid meters? Will my electricity improve? When will it improve? And luckily, the minister said by the end of the year, we would have 2,000 additional megawatts into the grid. Having 2,000 megawatts does not mean that we will have power in our houses unless the distribution companies also make the investments that will take that power from the grid and reticulate it to our homes. In other words, buying the transformers, repairing the lines, buying the poles, and all those things cost money. But again, it's a bitter pill to swallow, no doubt about it. People's income are still static, and they've had to pay more for energy. But it's in the right direction. And if we freeze tariff or we say no tariff until the improvements happen, we might end up killing the whole sector.
Now, the federal government made an effort to hit the target of 6,000 megawatts of electricity generation in 2009, but it was unable to do it. And then in 2013, it was to achieve 10,000 megawatts target. Yet, the federal government wasn't able to meet the target. So, how can Nigerians be sure now that with all these new policies being put in place, that if eventually they agree to swallow the bitter pill, it's going to be good for everyone?
2009, 2010, you had tariffs that were not cost reflective. You also had the government that was trying to fund these projects, and clearly they were clearly unrealistic in my view. Now we have a private sector in control. The private sector have now been given an economic model that works for their investments, such that they are assured of a return on their investments. What you're seeing is you are seeing a number of distribution companies make the investments. I know a number of distribution companies are now heavily into prepaid meters, and in the next couple of months, you would see a rollout of prepaid meters. Let me give you an instance. Kano Disco, they just purchased about 80,000 meters, prepaid meters, which they've started the rollout to their customers. But on the generation side, you will see a lot more gas in the system. The challenge we've had with generation is that the gas producers, because they were owed a lot of money, have not been producing gas. And number two, the price of gas was not economic for them to produce. Now the gas prices have improved, have increased, and they think it's an economic model. You will see a lot more gas in the sector, and that would improve generation. The generators will now be able to, when they generate electricity for every megawatt they generate, they should be able to be paid 100% in full. For the transmission company, the TCN has always run a grid that was inefficient because the transmission tariffs were quite low. With the new tariffs in place, we expect that TCN will get a living, let me borrow the word from NLC, a living tariff that would enable them to sustain and expand investments in transmission. Lastly, for the discos, with these new tariffs, we hope that the discos will now be able to make the necessary investments in transformers, in poles, in meters, in substations that will give us reliable and quality power. So I'm pretty confident that in the next couple of months and years to come, we will look back and say this was a turning point where the electricity sector became a lot more efficient.
At the discos, like you just said, that what you highlighted that they should do at the moment, isn't it what they are supposed to do before the electricity tariff is hiked?
This is where we miss it. The reform in the power sector is governed by an act called the Electric Power Sector Reform Act. It was passed in 2005. Now, what that act enshrines, it enshrines that investors would have a cost-reflective tariff. In other words, an economic model that works for their investment. Now, and that means that the tariff model has to be right. If you don't set the tariff model in a manner that will attract investment, then the investors cannot make the investments that they need. Because guess what? If they go to their bankers will tell them your business case doesn't make sense. You're running at a loss across the value chain. So it's a case of setting the right economic model, in other words, putting the right tariffs in place, and then setting benchmarks for the investors to make the necessary improvements in the sector. So again, like I said, it's a chicken and egg situation. We've been used to low tariffs in the country. This is the first time that we'll have tariffs that will be cost reflective, and we're expecting that the operators in the sector, both the distribution, transmission, and generation segments, will make the necessary investments to improve the power sector.